Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to the next in our series of the Polar Routes Inspiration Series. My name's Martin. I'm the co-founder and director of Polar Routes, and we've got a really great evening lined up for you with Dr. Tom Hart, which I'll be introducing you in just a moment. Thank you very much for joining us on this evening. It's a year since we had our first Polar Routes Inspiration Series, and it's actually 2 years to the day since the UK first lockdown. And I'm really pleased to report that obviously we're in much better circumstances now. And in fact, travel is almost away again, with tomorrow the removal of the form you have to do to come back to the UK, opening things up hopefully even more. So slow and steady wins the race. On to this evening, let me just share my screen again, if it will allow me to do that. 2 seconds, I'll just tell you what's coming up this evening. There we go, hopefully everyone can see that. So this evening, and it's going to move on. I'm just going to go over very quickly about Polar Routes just for a couple of minutes. There's a few new faces on, but don't worry, just for a couple of minutes. And then you'll be glad to know that this evening, not so much of me talking, because we'll be joined by Dr. Tom Hart, who's going to do a great presentation on the wildlife of Antarctica, with obviously a particular focus on penguins, being a penguinologist. And then we've got a short presentation on quark expeditions with Andrew, and then that will be followed by questions, answers for Dr. Tom Hart and Andrew, and any general questions you've got about polar cruising as well, I can help answer. And then a prize, and tonight's prize, if you stay to the end, so the condition as always, you must stay to the end in order to claim the prize. And there is a choice this evening. We have gone back to 2 classics, 2 of our most popular prizes. So on the left, you could win tonight a sterling silver penguin necklace, courtesy of Promise Designs, or you can have a bottle of Shackleton's whiskey, which of course, with the recent discovery of the Endurance, also is a very appropriate present as well. So more about that later. And as mentioned, you must still be here at the end in order to claim your prize. Big thank you today to Quark Expeditions. They are hosting and sponsoring this evening, without which, these Polar Routes inspirational sessions would be incredibly difficult. The quality of people that we're able to talk to you comes from fantastic sponsorship, and Quark, you'll be hearing more about those later on, but just to say initially, thank you very much to Quark Expeditions. So just very quickly, for those of you that are new, I promise this is just a couple of minutes for those that already have seen this before, but we're Polar Routes. We are the Polar Expedition Cruise Specialists, and it's all about creating fantastic moments. We sell expedition cruising to the polar regions, including Antarctica, and those are small ships that you get off on, often most of the time on Zodiac boats, have amazing wildlife experiences, amazing landscape experiences, and get up close to all the action. We work with over 22 leading expedition cruise operators, all hand-selected to us to ensure they offer the very best quality, value and service, and do it in the most authentic ways possible. We are a one-stop shop, so we do compare all of the operators' itineraries, ships and prices and inclusions to make sure that we find a perfect fit for you. All of the advice from our team travel specialists is experts. It's what we do day in, day out, and all of them have got first-hand experience as well. And we can, if you need, package the flights with cruise flights and transfers, and even some exciting land packages if you fancy exploring more places like South America for Antarctica, and places like Norway if you're heading north. These are just some of the operators that you work with, so you'll see some big names that you might recognize on there, and some smaller names on there as well, but we'll move on from this slide, as tonight it's all about Quark Expeditions. And as ever, our guarantees, price is always the same or better than the cruise operators directly. That's absolutely guaranteed. All operator offers applicable, plus you'll occasionally see some Polar Routes exclusive deals, of which we've got a great one to tell you about this evening. And points on your bookings put towards future cruises as well. We've got a rewards program called My Routes Rewards, and there'll be a little bit more coming out about that in the next couple of weeks. So do check your emails for those that are on our database. And of course, as you'd expect in this day and age, 100% financial protection for all of our bookings. By booking with Polar Routes, we are supporters of the UK Antarctic Heritage Trust. So I announced that on our last session, but that partnership is now ongoing and going really well so far. We do make a contribution for every booking that we make, plus fundraising efforts as well. And most recently, our business development executive did the Polar Plunge, which I know some people would choose to do, but I can assure you for her, there was absolutely no choice in doing it whatsoever. And she managed to raise some great money for UK Antarctic Heritage Trust just to kick the year off. It's really, really great. So on to tonight. As ever, if you have got questions as Dr. Tom is speaking, or as Andrew is speaking about Quark, or as I said, any general queries you've got just about expedition cruises I can answer as well, please pop your Q&As, your questions, sorry, in the box at the bottom. Put them in as soon as you think of them. We will do about 10 minutes, 10, maybe 15 minutes if necessary at the end, and I'll pick out the ones or consolidate if there's a few in the same area, and I'll post those questions, and I'll pose those questions, apologies, to Tom or Andrew. So as soon as you think of them, pop them in the box, the more the better, towards the end of the session today. So that's enough of me. You'll be pleased to hear. I'd like to introduce and invite Dr. Tom Hart to pop his camera on. So Tom is a renowned penguinologist and all-round lover of wildlife in extreme environments. His work is all around conservation in our ever-changing world, and his PhD involved tracking macaroni penguins to understand penguin foraging behaviour, and since then he's diversified into genetics, into image analysis to monitor wildlife in remote places, and he runs the Penguin Watch project at Oxford University. As I'm sure you can imagine, he has a special fondness for penguins, and in particular macaroni penguins, I believe, but we'll be tonight sharing insights on all aspects of wildlife in Antarctica and South Georgia. Tom, welcome.
Hi, Martin.
Does that do you justice, hopefully?
Oh, I'm sure it does. Can I share?
Yes, please do. Thank you so much. I'll hand over to you, Tom. So thanks so much, and I will, go for it.
Okay, thank you very much, and hello, everyone. So yeah, my name's Tom. I'm from Oxford University, and I'm actually fresh back from Antarctica. And I want to talk to you not just about penguins, actually. I want to talk to you about Antarctica, and I want to dispel some myths, and I want to tell you about what it's like, some background, and what it feels like to go to Antarctica. So hopefully that inspires you to actually take the plunge. This is Antarctica. Biologically, we actually include all the outlying islands as well. But this is the shape you will recognize. It's the highest, driest continent on Earth. It's 48 times the size of the UK. It's very hard to find a traffic warden or a lawyer, but there is probably the highest number of bars per capita because each base has one. And this might be the stereotype, but that's one of the things I want to walk you away from tonight. So it's it's perceived as the last untouched continent. It's the last great wilderness, and it's probably full of men with beards. Now that certainly was true. This is the wonderful Charcot and his expedition in 1904. So importantly, we've actually had a presence on Antarctica for quite a long time now. It started with the explorers, but it rapidly was followed by those who sought to exploit Antarctica. So this is one of the famous sites of exploration, and one of the early rescue missions before Shackleton, actually, in the Weddell Sea. So this is the Nordenskjold expedition, and a site you can visit. So strange in that there are pinpricks of history when you go to Antarctica. It really is all around you, and yet there's a few sites you can visit where you really are in touch with history at the same time as it's getting reclaimed by the environment. It's certainly not pristine, and in some of those places we can see that. So there's evidence of whaling, particularly up on South Georgia. So these are oil digesters. This is one of the whaling ships. And a lot of sealing that really decimated a lot of the wildlife that was there. But fortunately, at least in terms of whaling and sealing, these are fading into the background, and rust has a way of making things look prettier. So this is the Bayard, part of the whaling operation out of Ocean Harbour on South Georgia. You can see the masts gradually falling. It's now home to a whole colony of Antarctic shags. One of the big things that came out of post really collapse of whaling, because while it was regulated, it really only stopped when the whales had almost become unprofitable or had become unprofitable. And around the same time, the Antarctic Treaty came into force. Now, there are lots of claims to Antarctica. In some cases, they're overlapping on the peninsula, what we call the ABC problem. So Argentina, Britain, and Chile. But that has now held all of these historic claims in abeyance. There's no end date to the treaty. There are certainly some stresses on it, but largely it holds quite well. With the Antarctic Treaty and the International Whaling Commission, there's been a moratorium on whaling. Now, blue whales in particular, all of the whaling stocks were depleted. Blue whales almost to extinction. However, really in the last couple of years, with pioneering work by Jen Jackson out of the British Antarctic Survey, we're getting early indicators of even the blue whales starting to come back. And I've been going to Antarctica for, I think, 17 years now, and I saw my first unequivocal blue whale this season. And of course, things like fins and humpbacks are they're already way ahead of this. They're coming back in huge numbers. So I've deliberately put this in because our current challenge now is fishing. So we're not out of the woods yet. There is reasonable conservation in Antarctica. There's excellent conservation in South Georgia, but we do still have a fishery that, as you can see, is starting to overlap with whales. So I said it's cold, white, and beardy. Well, that certainly exists, but you can see here I'm happily marching through a blizzard and enjoying myself. It's not that cold; those are only gardening gloves. And actually, if anyone wants to talk about what kind of kit to take, I have some strong opinions on that will also save you money. The modern diversity and enthusiasm for Antarctica is just infectious. I mean, we laugh when we hear things like, great God, this is an awful place, the quote from Scott. I mean, modern clothing, better knowledge, remote sensing and weather forecasting. It means this is a community of some incredibly happy people doing a job they love, and you will be infected by that. It's not the white continent. I mean, yes, all of that exists and it's a generalization. However, the diversity in terrain, in wildlife, in the kind of things you will take photos of is a lot more than the stereotype gives off. So this is one of the HO islands in the South Shetland, so just basically on the Antarctic Peninsula. This is South Georgia, which is really green around the edges. So really a lot of vibrant colors. I mean, green is the color that's rarest, but it's not just black and white. There's stunning skies, seascapes, ice, mountains, and occasionally even a bit of green. This is part of Deception Island. It's the entrance coal colony. This is a small chinstrap colony right on the edge of where we sail into deception. It would be false advertising not to comment on the smell. I don't really smell it anymore, but these beautiful colors are made by penguin poo and the krill that they eat. It's a bad thing in COVID times to say I don't smell it anymore. That generally gets you isolated. But some really quite incredible patterns and scenes that you would not even expect to see, despite the fact there's a lot of photos on the internet and that we've all been exposed to natural history documentaries. So a little bit about the penguins you're going to see. Now, cute, cuddly, etc. Well, all of those stereotypes are wrong. This is what a penguin should look like. It's designed for the water. And so if you go to Antarctica, you have a real chance to see through the anthropomorphism, the marketing of penguins as cute, cuddly, upright, like little people. They're incredibly dynamic predators. They're wonderful to see in the water, and you'll really get a sense of what they're about and their differences. So there's a lot of penguin species around the world. We can find 7 in Antarctica, depending on where you define the boundary, and particularly on the longer trips, you would expect to see most of them. It's really, Martin, I will just ask you to check you can see this video and that it moves on. Let me know if it doesn't move on. But Antarctica doubles in size. Sorry, can you see it, Martin?
Yep, all looks good.
Great. And let me know if it doesn't move on when I move on. So Antarctica doubles in size every winter. And that's because the sea freezes, and this sea ice is a major part of the habitat. So you can see there that it's doubling in size. And also you can see that the Antarctic Peninsula freezes last and emerges first. So that's where most of the life is, and certainly the diversity of life. So as you go into the Antarctic, the round part of the Antarctic continent, that's really just adelies and emperor penguins. But on the peninsula, you get everything. So that tends to be things like this, the gentoos. You can find them everywhere. So ice and temperature and food really determine what you're going to see where and when. So that's a thought, because one of the big questions is, when should I go? And really that depends on what you want to see, because all of this wildlife is cyclical. It has a narrow breeding season, and not everything breeds at the same time. So depending on what you want to see in terms of wildlife will determine when you should go. This is a colony of emperor penguins at Snow Hill. Are you going to see those? Almost certainly not. So that's the one thing that it's incredibly hard to see. I know that with the big icebreaker in the past, we've been able to get there. And I think there are hopes to go again, but unless your trip explicitly says you're hoping to see emperor penguins, that won't go. That's one of the mistakes or disappointments people have if they don't research it. So of all of the penguins, and this is true for seals as well, but the timing varies, they come ashore in about October. And that's really the earliest we can get in, because otherwise sea ice precludes it. They will start incubating. So there's a lot of behavior of honking and bonking, as we call it. And that goes on into December, when you'll start to see chicks emerge. And then the later you leave it, you'll see these chicks growing up, running around, chasing adults, and then fledging and disappearing off into sea. The first of those to arrive are macaroni penguins. And basically, if I take you in a journey north to south, a lot of these trips include South Georgia. And to answer the question, should you include South Georgia? If you can afford it in time and money, absolutely. It is the jewel of the Southern Ocean, and it's one of the highlights of any kind of natural history or just views anywhere in the world. It is a stunning place, and those of us that are privileged to call Antarctica home, we compete to spend as much time on South Georgia as possible. So you can find macaronis really only up in South Georgia. You start to see, and a lot of the wildlife overlaps between the outer lying islands and down onto the peninsula. So gentoos start to become really numerous. Kings are, well, the king of South Georgia. So these are the largest family of penguins. They're the sister species of emperors. And if emperors are the ice specialists, they're roughly the same build of bird is the sub-Antarctic specialist. So these are deep divers that are incredibly good at going down for 20 minutes at a time and chasing deep sea squid and fish. You start to see, as you leave South Georgia, you start to see chinstrap penguins, incredibly like recognizable. There's something about that chinstrap that's really precise and used in mate choice. So the color of that line is not just black and white feathers, it even dissects some of the feathers. So you get, it's an incredibly rare thing in nature to have such straight lines. Still seeing gentoo penguins. Some debate as to whether these are the same species. Genetically, they start to separate out, although they look the same. And then as you move into as you go down the Antarctic Peninsula, you start to see Adelie penguin. So a real cold water specialist. All penguins are cold water specialists. They differ in their by degrees and also how much they can tolerate cold air temperatures. So a truly fantastic little bird. The colonies are very impressive. You get these big patterns. You can see that they're fairly regular. That's because they are two snapping bill distances apart. Allegedly, the same reason that the UK House of Commons is two drawn swords width apart. The colonies you are likely to see are huge. They differ greatly in size. On the peninsula, they tend to be slightly smaller, with some real exceptions like the Danger Islands. But this is Brisbane Point on South Georgia, and that's a fairly typical king penguin colony. That's roughly 80,000 pairs, and easily up to 150,000 pairs in St Andrews Bay. So very beautiful birds and associated very beautiful colonies. There's real color and as well as the vibrancy, the noise and the smell in these. So when to go? Well, as I say, it really depends on what you want to see. There are king penguins around South Georgia all the time. So that's not how you would make the decision of when to go. So you see here we're in December. So the earliest you could get in is probably about October to South Georgia. And as you go through the season, you start to see more chicks. And by the time we get into the next year, these chicks are just about to molt by the time so that they can start again. You might see a lot of fur seals in the north, not as we get into the ice. A lot of these crab-eater seals, Weddell seals, and the occasional leopard seal hanging around patrolling and looking to ambush penguins and small seals. As I said, whales are really coming back, particularly to the Antarctic Peninsula. It's in the fjord systems that you have some of the best encounters. If you encounter them like that big fin whale aggregation I showed you a minute ago, if you encounter them offshore, it's a big feeding frenzy. There's some kind of hotspot of krill there that, and we're finding increasing numbers of those near the South Orkneys, near Elephant Island. But these are most of the encounters. It's where you're in a zodiac and you see whales in the distance and hopefully they come to you, or you just sit and wait until they do. I've had some incredibly close encounters with whales, never threatening or anything like that, where either they are passing or they are deliberately coming to look at us. The best experiences are where you turn the engine off and wait and hope for them to interact with you. For whales, that tends to be later in the season. They follow the krill down and they're also migrating in. So a lot of Antarctic species are actually seasonal visitors. And that's true for almost all the whales other than some of the beaked whales, I think. So the time to go for whales is later in the season. If whales are your thing and that is what you want, go after Christmas and probably around February. Ice, there's always ice and seascapes. It's in some ways more impressive early on, but actually there's enough ice floating around and coming and going that it will always be there, drifting in and out with changes in wind and tide. Some of the landscapes are breathtaking. You don't really have any night or day if you go too early. So if you're a photographer, you want to go late because then you get the dawn and dusk and those golden hours that are actually stretched out even more. So you get the incredible light. So broadly speaking, if you want seals, penguins, go early. And broadly speaking, if you want whales or light for photography, go later. Some of the things you might expect to see are really impressive landscapes. I mean, that really is an absolute given. One of the things I love, now I'm very privileged because I can go and walk around and play with penguins, but you will have remote experiences regardless. There are adventure options that I think if you're into particularly skiing or snowshoeing, you want to go early because that's a wonderful experience, but we're more limited in where we can go as some of the snow starts to melt and crevasses are exposed or rocks are exposed that make it more challenging or riskier. Things like bases, those are around year-round, open year-round, sorry. And this is, as Martin mentioned, this is one of the UK Antarctic Heritage Trust sites. So this is Port Lockroy, home of the Penguin Post Office, and a beautiful site to visit. I love this because part of what we do now to collect our data is fly drones for aerial surveys. And these paths are formed every year, the Penguin Highways. And one of the really, an offshoot of the research is looking for where those paths go and how those are formed year on year. Not an important part of the conservation, but it's fascinating to see these patterns emerge. Again, adventure options all year round. I cannot say the one of the nicest experiences I've had in Antarctica is by kayaking. It's a wonderful way to get close to wildlife in silence. So you'll find that seals on ice and whales in the water really respond very positively to you in a kayak. And it's one of the absolute nicest experiences I've had is just the silence of being in the kayak and interacting with penguins around us or seals. So I said, it's more than just a black and white continent, but the icebergs are very impressive and are there all year round. So the question of are you going to see things like this? Yes. Will the weather be as good? Maybe not. But these are really all around. And the thing about Antarctica is if you look almost anywhere, you will be impressed. The trick is actually to go with the flow. So as I said, maybe later in the season is if you're a photographer, depending on whether you want to capture animal antics and behavior or whether you want landscapes with stunning lighting. I will just say one kind of cautionary tale is this is Paradise Harbour. And I think this was one of this highlights how you can get it wrong in Antarctica, or how to avoid this to get it right. We saw a small group of people that came down and they'd been told, unless you go to Paradise Harbour, you haven't been to Antarctica. And when we didn't go to Paradise Harbour, they were really disappointed. And of course, it's named Paradise Harbour because it's a very special place and it tends to be good. But Antarctica is amazing for how fast it can change. There are always good parts of it, and there's always parts that are wet, windy, and horrible. Whenever we camp, so quite often we camp in one place if we need to study somewhere in depth. And when you stop moving around, you realize how bad a lot of the weather is. And it's incredible how good we are at making the best of things when, if you're not able to move, these weather systems just come through and hammer you. So trust in your guides to make good calls. I really strongly advise you not to go down with preconceptions and to just roll with it. Like I say, if there's big things you want to see, do your research. So if whales are important to you, look up the kind of timing of whales. If photography is important to you, then have a few practices with your camera before you go. Get some opinions on when the light is best compared to what you want to see. It really is important to do a bit of research so that you're not disappointed if there's one thing you really want. The weather can change a lot and very fast, but that has been, for me, so long as we're safe, we'll be grinning like idiots pushing through ice. I mean, this is another great experience. Is just and as you can see, we're flying a drone here. This was getting a survey done in weather that was too bad to get through the ice. But there's so much fun to be had so long as you roll with it. And look at these cheesy monkeys. You'll see that everyone's cold and bundled up, and yet everyone's really happy. And that is another one of the take homes. The people you meet down there and the people you go with are not something you expect, but often you come away with great friends from these. No one goes to Antarctica without a story or a dream. It's strange because people fall in love with Antarctica without ever seeing it. It's the one place or thing you can think of where that's true, that no one has a real sense of what Antarctica is like until they go there. So stay open and enjoy the people as well as the landscape, because for me, that is what keeps me coming back every time. I love what I do, and the people keep it sane and brilliant. So I'm kind of going to wrap up there. I've probably been slightly faster than I planned, but I'll play the videos I wasn't sure that would work. So this is an absolutely beautiful place. I've actually just come back from here. This is the Danger Islands, and this was something we've been trying out for a couple of years now. I put time-lapse cameras out to study penguins, and this was one that was taking fast enough images that we think we can get their foraging rate, so that we can look at when they change over between partners. I said you get to see the characters of each of them. So these are macaroni penguins. I love these guys. They're like Londoners or New Yorkers. When you sit, if you remember what it's like to sit in a cafe and watch the world go past and people arguing with each other, these are the New Yorkers of the Southern Ocean. So, so yeah, something that you don't see on many nature documentaries, but the differences in characters between the various wildlife you will see will stay with you. So thank you. Hopefully I've left a bit of time for questions. So are there any questions?
Thank you very much, Tom. That was great. That was really, really good. I think we have got a couple of questions coming in. What I might do, if it's all right, Tom, is we'll let Andrew do his bit, and then we'll come back for everyone. So if you have got questions, do pop them in. I've got a couple that I'll be asking if necessary. But we'll do it after Andrew's bit, just in case there's also questions about sort of the more practical sides of it as well. So, but thank you so much. It's just absolutely stunning that some of those images are just, particularly the aerial ones, which is a question I do want to ask in a moment. But some of those aerial shots just absolutely incredible. Yeah, just absolutely amazing. So thank you very much. Thank you. Andrew, if I can ask you, hopefully he's there, to put his camera on. Hi, Andrew. Thanks for thanks for being with us. I'm going to hand over to you now to share your screen. So Andrew is from Quark Expedition, and obviously Tom works with you guys, I think, pretty closely. So I think it's naturally appropriate to hand over to yourself, and then, as I said, pop any questions you've got in the box, and once you finish, Andrew, we'll go through those. Thanks very much.
Perfect. Thanks, Martin. Thanks, Tom. Yeah, I probably should have gone first. I don't really want to follow Tom now after seeing that. It's really inspiring, so I really enjoyed that presentation myself. But so yeah, good evening, everybody, and thanks for joining us. As Martin mentioned, my name's Andrew and I'm from Quark Expeditions. So I wanted to focus a little bit more just about Quark in general and what you can expect from Quark, and why travel with us. So, as Martin mentioned before, he does work at Polar Routes with many different polar suppliers. So, in regards to what Quark can offer you as a guest. So I think the biggest thing to keep in mind for us is the fact that we only do polar expeditions. So it's all we do, and it's all we've done for over 30 years now. So it is safe to say that we definitely are the polar specialists. And I think when you're traveling to these particular destinations, you really want to know that you're in the hands of, the people that know these areas intimately and are specialists. Now, I'm sure everybody probably says it, but I definitely mean it when I say we do have the most experienced team in the polar regions. We're actually the only company in the polar industry to have our own proprietary training institute. And that's based in Ushuaia, and that's basically called the Quark Academy, and all of our crew members and expedition crew, before they start working on our ships, they're all fully trained up at the Quark Academy. On average, our expedition leaders have done 140 expeditions in their career, and some have done well over 200. So, as I mentioned, they really do know these areas intimately. At Quark, we are all about getting you off the ship as often as possible. So we aim for 2 landing sites per day. We can sometimes manage 3 if possible, but generally we have 1 before lunch and 1 after lunch. And, we're all about getting you deeper into the polar regions and, really immersing you in nature, and getting to experience these destinations in, ways that, other companies maybe can't. So, say that we've got more off-ship adventure options than anybody else, and I'll touch on what those are in a moment. Now, we've got a fleet of small ships. So focusing just on Antarctica, we have 4 vessels which we sail in our Antarctic fleet, all small ships, and they range in size from 128 passengers up to 199 passengers. So the reason that our ships will never be over 200 guests is the fact that for the polar regions, any ship that carries under 200 passengers can basically land on any sites within these areas, and so, we can go and explore wherever we like. But our ships that carry more than 200 and under 500 passengers, they're very restricted, I should say, into the areas that they can land, and the beaches and so on that they can land on. And any ships that carry more than 500 guests, they're not allowed to land anywhere. So it's literally just sailing past and viewing everything from behind a pane of glass. So, you know, that's why we'll always have less than 200 passengers to make sure that we can really get you out and about, you know, everywhere as possible. Industry leaders in health and safety. So, you know, that includes things like sustainability and stuff. That's a very big, important thing for us. Sustainability is part of our DNA and has been from the very beginning. I mentioned we're all about getting you off the ship as often as possible, but when we are on board the ships, we're all about sort of engaging and educating our guests through, you know, onboard presentations, lectures, talks, and so on. So what we find is that our clientele generally fall into at least one of these 4 categories. Now, you might find that you sort of relate to just one of these. You might find that you relate to all 4 of them in a way. But generally speaking, our clients sort of are either checklisters. So these are the people that like to basically, you know, they're those bucket list trippers. They want to go out and experience a particular destination, for example, the 7th continent. So they might want to see Antarctica in their lifetime. They might just want to see a polar bear. So they might want to, you know, book a trip to Spitsbergen just for that particular reason. You know, and they know that we can help them do that. We've got the escapists. So these are people that are wanting to basically disconnect, get away from it all, reconnect with themselves and nature. The learners, these people that, you know, they like being around like-minded people. They're all about sort of engaging with the expedition crew on board and the expedition leaders and fellow guests, and learning all about, you know, polar history, or, you know, the history of a particular destination or so on. And then we have the adventurers. So these are the ones, the travelers that basically they're all about experiencing, you know, these particular areas in ways that, you know, things like they want to do stand-up paddleboarding, or, you know, as Tom mentioned earlier, kayaking and things like that. So, you know, they're not so much bothered by, you know, the luxuries or the facilities on board. They're all about getting out and about and experiencing these destinations in, you know, really adventurous ways. Where we travel to, so for Antarctica, you can see here, these are the different areas that we go to. So generally speaking, we do the Antarctic Peninsula. We often cross the circle as well to get you down as far south as that. South Georgia, the Falkland Islands. We also do a new itinerary which we've got launching next, at the end of this year, called Essential Patagonia. Which goes and does all the Chilean fjords and so on. Now, most of our cruises do depart from Ushuaia. We also do have some fly cruise options as well. So for those of you that might be a bit more sort of stuck on time and don't want to spend as much time sort of doing traveling and crossing the Drake Passage, or if you are just a bit hesitant to cross the Drake Passage because it can be notoriously rough, we do offer those fly cruise options where you will fly from Punta Arenas, land on King George Island, and then sail from there, and then do the same to go back. On our newest ship, Ultramarine, which I'll show you in a moment as well, all of our Antarctic itineraries on Ultramarine actually start and end in Buenos Aires, and we have what's called a transfer package, where at the beginning you have a hotel night in Buenos Aires, and then you've got your return charter flights down to Ushuaia. So I just wanted to touch on the fleet that we have for our Antarctic cruises. So Ultramarine, this is the newest fleet, the newest ship in our fleet. She's also the largest ship at 199 guests. So still a small ship, but the largest in our fleet. Now, she only launched at the very end of last year for one of our itineraries down in Antarctica. And basically an amazing trip, amazing feedback that we had from passengers on board. Now, the good thing about Ultramarine is that she is equipped with 2 twin-engine helicopters as well, which means we can basically take our guests a lot further into some of these areas that we haven't been able to access before, and really get to view the polar regions from a bird's eye perspective, basically. So it's everybody that books an Ultramarine does get an included flight seeing excursion, which is about a 10 to 15 minute flight, which is included. And then there are also other adventure options that you can choose, which do include, you know, flights on the helicopters like heli hiking, heli trekking, and so on. Now, she also is equipped with 20 quick launching Zodiacs, which are all deployed from a water level hangar. So it allows for much more spontaneous exploration as well. So you know, it takes about half the time that it normally would to deploy the Zodiac. So it's that's basically, as I said, allows for much more spontaneous exploration into these areas. Most of the cabins on board also have their own private verandas. Also have 6 dedicated solo cabins as well. So if you are a single traveller and you just want your own cabin, not at a large supplement, you do have the option for those solo panorama cabins. You can see here that top middle image there is our Balena restaurant. Beautiful meals served in this restaurant there. Gorgeous wraparound deck just outside as well with easy access from the restaurant. So you could be sitting there having might be a in by the side of the ship. You can, you know, get up, go and take some photos, come back in and finish your lunch. So very well designed, beautiful fitness facilities and wellness facilities, and I'll touch on those in a moment. World Explorer. So World Explorer is our other luxury ship. So we've definitely got the 2 luxury vessels being Ultramarine and then World Explorer as well. World Explorer is a little bit smaller at 172 passengers, and she is a 100% all-suite ship. So every single cabin on board is a suite with its own private veranda as well. So World Explorer only sails in Antarctica, whereas the other ships will sail both in Antarctica and the Arctic. But you can see some of the public spaces on World Explorer include this, you know, beautiful observation lounge with a big glass dome. You've got a big panorama lounge and bar area, and great sort of bar facilities on board also. And then we've got a couple of, I'd say, more your traditional expedition ships. So Ocean Adventurer is the smallest ship in our fleet. So she carries just 128 passengers, and she's what we would describe as our shippy ship. So, you know, she's very much more of that kind of mahogany and brass kind of decor. You know, this is for people that might be a bit more price conscious, but still you're going to get the full Quark experience with the full, you know, expertise of the Quark crew on board, all the same facilities and so on like that, but it's just an older ship. So, you know, if you're happy to, you know, I find that some people do actually prefer having that more traditional expedition ship and expedition feel. She actually underwent a big refurbishment in 2017. So she was then rebuilt with some new sort of cabins on board as well, some more suites and so on. So it really depends on what you are looking for. And the other one in a similar sort of category is Ocean Diamond. So Ocean Diamond, again, more of that kind of traditional expedition feel. 189 passengers, and she's a real favourite amongst you know, our crew and past travellers as well. And then on board, so your experience sort of throughout the day, you know, we offer daily briefings and recaps. So each day there'll be sort of a briefing in the morning about what to expect that day, and then again in the evening about things that you might want to know about the day afterwards, or, you know, things that people might want to talk about, their experiences and share photographs and so on of what they've experienced during that day. Onboard learning. So I mentioned before about our crew being the best out there, and, you know, we have people that come from such a wide, varied sort of different backgrounds. So we have ornithologists, people like Tom, penguinologists. We have just polar historians, just, you know, people that are real kind of specialists in their field. And it's great that they get that one-on-one time with our guests, and, you know, they are really there to help enhance our guests' experiences on board. Wildlife and nature viewing. So Ultramarine, for example, has more outdoor viewing space than any other ship of a similar size. So that's a really important one as well, because, you know, you don't want to be sort of jostling for space out on board the platforms. Lots of opportunities to connect. So as I mentioned, we've got one-on-one time, sort of our crew members will dine with our guests on board as well. And so, you know, they can sort of have that experience where they get to kind of share those experiences, you know, one-on-one. amazing food on board. Sorry, I can see Martin's popped his camera on. I know I'm getting there.
We've
Need
got
to hurry up now.
coming up, Andrew, including for you. So I don't want to lose my questions at the end. But yeah, go for it.
No worries at all. So that's basically. I will just flick to the adventure options because I think that is an important one because we do offer more adventure options than any other operator out there, and they range from things like you've got included activities here, like all your Zodiac cruising, all your landing sites. The polar plunge is always included on all of our voyages. Our paid adventure option. So if you do want to do something a little bit extra, as Tom mentioned before, kayaking is such an amazing way to experience these areas. So we offer 2 programs. One is for experienced kayakers, but then we also offer our paddling adventure as well, which is a one-off experience during your voyage. So if you don't have any kayaking experience or just want to do it for once there, we do offer that, along with things like stand-up paddleboarding. We do camping on the ice and that type of stuff. So it really is up to you to tailor-make your way, tailor-make your trip to be as as adventurous or as just laid back as you like. And then just finally, at the moment for our Antarctica voyages, we've just launched our 23-24 season. And so we do have savings of up to 25% early booking discounts. Plus, if you do pay in full within 30 days of booking on selected voyages, you'll save an additional 10%. And just lastly, an exclusive that we've got with Polar Routes at the moment. If you do book your Quark Expedition voyage before the 31st of March, you will receive $250 per person shipboard credit that you can use on board. So that is me done. Sorry, Martin, I was trying to rush through that, but I've stopped sharing my screen.
No, sorry to
not at all.
Sorry to rush you.
No worries.
I think a couple of bits just worth pointing out, actually, just obviously to offer some perspective on a couple of bits. I love the kayaking that Quark offer, both as a program for an experienced person, but also a paddle experience for someone who's not, is quite rare. Not that many operators offer both sides, because I personally, for example, would love to do kayaking, having just heard about it from Tom, but I certainly wouldn't want to do it for the whole voyage. So I think that's a really great thing. And also, can I just confirm that's right, with Ultramarine, one helicopter flight's included?
Exactly right. Yes, so you do get your flight scene excursion included on Ultramarine. The only place we're not allowed to deploy them in South Georgia. So for our Antarctic voyages, they will be anywhere else but South Georgia. And if you are going to Spitsbergen for the Arctic voyages, we're not allowed to deploy any helicopters in Spitsbergen. So that's the only places that we won't be able to use them, but any other place, we're good to go with them.
One's included as well, because without mentioning names, there are other operators with helicopters that charge between $300 and $500 for a 10-15 minute site. In fact, you get one for free. It's really good. And we have had loads of questions in. And Tom, I think Shelley asks the best question to just get us started, which is a question to you, Tom. And that is, where does your passion for penguins come from? Where did it all start? Why penguins?
It comes from meeting them. So I was very much an ecologist, a marine ecologist, conservationist, and I fell in love more with the ecosystem and the fact that you could do something about it. So the North Sea is pretty damaged and remains damaged by politicians. And the difference with the Antarctic Treaty is that if you show what the problem is, to some degree, it's likely to get fixed. There's still a bit of politicking. However, really, it was born from the thought that I could make a difference. I loved the environment when I got down there. So I'm the same as you guys when I say people fall in love with Antarctica before ever really getting to know it. And so I was the same. I kind of respected penguins, but the love of all the wildlife has come with knowledge and with experience.
Yeah, I think it's just so true, isn't it? Because I always say very often, actually, it is important to get the details right, as you said, Tom. But if you've got expectations for Antarctica, most often it does blow those expectations way out of the water. It's a really emotive.
They will change. Yeah, I mean, there is no one trip. We could literally come up with a list of sites to go to and things to see, and it would never, ever be the same. Like, I think, the best trip we've ever done was Plan C. And that's not best in the sense of what you see. The best trip might have been when we were on Plan Z, because you take advantage of whatever comes around the corner. So yeah, I mean, do your research in that if there's something that's really important. If whales are important to you, tend to go later. If penguin chicks are important, and that's a non-negotiable, go around Christmas or a little bit before. But the rest of it, go with an open mind, because you will be blown away, and it will not follow an itinerary. It will unfold according to its own schedule, but it will be breathtaking.
And that asks quite an interesting question. It says, what about krill fishing? Seems to be a big problem, or I guess the availability of krill. What's your comments on that?
Well, I mean, it's legal. We're trying to, a lot of the work I am involved with right now is trying to change the management and inform the management on whether it is a problem for penguins, seals, and whales. Yes, currently we're at the stage where I think we have strong circumstantial evidence that it's a problem, but not causal evidence. And so what I'm trying to do is persuade them to spread out rather than to go to those hotspots where whales and penguins are. But yeah, it's an issue.
And I'm right, if I remember rightly, if the penguin poop has a red colour, that means they've been eating plenty of krill, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So depending on what's available and the species, red poo is healthy krilly poo. White means they've had a lot of fish, and green means they've been standing around hungry for a while, which might just be they've been on that shift. It doesn't mean it's a problem. Know your poo.
Let's move on just a little bit. I had a question.
Nope, I was on a roll.
It's amazing how, yeah, absolutely. I actually had a question, because quite a few of your pictures are from the air, which is amazing. Obviously, one of the ways we can get up there is on an ultramarine cruise. But taking pictures with drones, you're not going to be taking your drone down to Antarctica, are you? Or no. Can you?
No, it's very strictly controlled. Basically, it's banned. I'm one of very few people with permission to fly over wildlife. It's relaxed a little bit away from wildlife aggregation. So it is relatively common. I mean, it depends on the exact crew, but I think Quark will probably have a drone operator on some of the trips. So it will gradually become more a thing that the photographer probably wants some drone shots and includes them in the slideshow. But yeah, sorry, I'm bragging with my photos because these are all part of scientific surveys. It's where we fly over and get 3D images, and that's how we count penguins and seals. But as a side note, we try and share them because yeah, they are pretty special and a unique perspective.
And the photographer, if they are one that's permitted to do some drone footage, am I right that at the end of the voyage, the passengers on that voyage get access to those pictures, don't they, or do they? So
yeah, there's always a photographer, and people, everyone donates photos to a slideshow, and then the photographer on board, part of their job is to go and fill in some of the action shots and things like that to make a good slideshow that tells the story really well. And those are usually pretty spectacular. But yeah, drone shots are increasingly a part of that, if and when they have permission.
Right. And Annette asks, obviously we talked about differences in wildlife, but is there much difference in the weather from November through to March that you would say people need to look out for?
Yes, but you'll have very different experiences, or you'll get to different sites depending on where the weather is. So Shane, one of my favorite expedition leaders, said, will there be weather? Yes, there will be weather, and we will we will adapt and we'll move around to overcome where is bad and try and take advantage of what's best. So, you know, it just comes and goes. The storm systems rattle through and might take 2 days. So you might be going north or south to avoid those. But in general, with all those caveats, it's colder in November, tends to be kind of bright and lovely, or at least you have a lot of bright and lovely days in December, January. Bit grayer into March, February, March, but then you get those incredible sunsets and sunrises. So there's several trade-offs that you make. And by the time you're into March, it's very patchy weather. So it could be lovely and it could be blowy and cold. Yeah.
You're going to get a bit of everything on it. One of the questions further up, actually, which Andrew, I'm sure you can answer, is the outer jacket provided? And with Quark, it is.
It is, yeah. So you get your polar expedition jacket, which is included, and that's yours to take home at the end of the voyage as well. We also do include your boots as well. Obviously, you don't take those back home with you, but they're there for you, so we provide those. The only other thing that we do that is compulsory are waterproof pants for the Zodiac cruising. So you must bring your own waterproof pants for those, but that's about it. And then the rest is just layers, really.
I'll ask this question from Susan. I'm going to read it out because you put it in such a wonderful way. It says, as a percentage of your clients are more elderly, are we now leaning towards gung-ho expeditions which golden clients cannot participate in due to age, or is this still the same time that all pioneers without feeling sidelined? Basically, it's all ages, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So we accept basically children from the age of 8, and then I think our oldest passenger to date was 100 years old. So as long as you're able and fit and able to can get in and out of the Zodiacs, then absolutely fine. There's we don't discriminate against age at all. Our average age, I think, is generally sort of between 45 to 65. Just on average, but it does vary. So yeah, I mean, the gentleman that was 100 years old is a gentleman from France, and apparently from what I heard, he was absolutely amazing. So as long as you are fit and healthy and get in and out the Zodiacs, then you're fine.
Generally get a choice when you make a landing. There's generally groups of things doing stuff. If you want to go for a massive walk up the hill and see the massive view, then you can. And equally, if you want to just kind of be around the penguins, can't you? You can just do that.
Yeah, and it tends to be fairly self-selecting. So, the expedition leader and guides on the beach will give people advice on what is the kind of the harder, medium or easy thing. And it could be that you just want to stay on the beach and look at seals. It could be you want to go off for a hike. Got to say that the hikes tend to be bigger and genuinely more strenuous in the Arctic. There's more freedom there because there's less ice covered area. It's very hard to take people across area where there might be crevasses. So the really big strenuous ones tend to be in the Arctic, and a couple in South Georgia. You can definitely go for walks on the Antarctic continent, but it's harder. Like I say, the area we're just more constrained in where we can go safely.
And there's a question about single supplements that I just wanted to pick up on. And I think you kind of mentioned something on me with having solo cabins. What's the deal on Quark with solo travel?
Yeah, so basically on Ultramarine now, we do have the single cabins, which are dedicated solo cabins, the solo panoramas. So there's 6 of those on Ultramarine. On the other vessels, or if you're looking at a different cabin category, generally our cabins are split into 2 different categories sort of thing. So you've got your standard cabins and also your premium cabins. So for single travelers booking into a standard cabin on a single share basis, they're generally at a 70% supplement. Premium cabins are at 100%. So it does depend. We also do offer though sort of a share with stranger type cabin. So if you were happy to be shared up, with somebody of the same sex, then that's an option as well where we can do that. And that's obviously then not at a supplement. So if people are happy to share with somebody, that is another option. But yeah, definitely. I mean, if you have to go on ultramarine now, the solo panoramas are a great option.
Yeah. I think it's probably just also worth mentioning, should the 6 cabins be sold out on Quark, that we at Polar Routes can often find if there's some good single supplement offers, of which Quark do them occasionally as well. So if you're a solo traveller, do get in touch, and we can get around 70 to 100% single supplements in a number of cases, not in every case, but we will do our best there as well. But I think the fact that you've got recognising it with dedicated solo cabins is brilliant. So that's really great. I think time-wise, I think we should probably wrap up. I think there's a couple of other questions that we've not quite got round to, which I apologise, but I think a couple of quick ones we can just very quickly cover off. Will I see penguins as late as February?
Yep, but in different life stage, so starting to fledge.
Andrew, do Quark also go to the Arctic? We are most interested in Wales, obviously.
Do indeed, yeah. So yep, definitely do the Arctic, yeah.
Without opening a massive can of worms, Tom, Wales also really possible to see in the Arctic as well, isn't it?
Oh yeah, massively. And in fact, like I said, it was my first genuine. That is definitely a blue whale in Antarctica after 17 years. I've seen them every trip to the Arctic. In fact, always with Annie Inglis. She's the blue whale spotter. Of all the other species, yeah, we see them all the time. Yeah, you'll get your eye in. So the first couple, you'll be amazed that people spot them from how far away, and then it transfers from the naturalist to you. You get very used to it, and you start seeing them everywhere.
And a couple of other quick ones. Is Antarctica now open? Yes. There
Yep.
has been some that have operated this season. I think next season will be much more stable. We had a bit of a chat about that earlier as well. And then, Andrew, this is you may not know the programme this well, but we'll ask it anyway, which is the question about, do any trips go to South Georgia and into the Antarctic Circle? I know quite used to. There is trips that do both.
There is. It's called Epic Antarctica. And it's a voyage which crosses the circle and does the peninsula, does South Georgia and the Falklands.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
Nice big long one.
Right, we will wrap up, conscious of time. Just to say, Tom, thank you so much for giving up your time.
Thank you, Martin.
It's been an
pleasure.
Pleasure. Andrew, also thank you to you. Before everybody runs off, just very quickly, I shall share my screen because we have drawn a winner of tonight's prize, which I'll just share. Hopefully everybody can see that. So tonight's winner is Roma Whiteley. So Roma, if you are hopefully still on, you have your choice between a sterling silver penguin necklace, courtesy of Promise Designs, or a bottle of Shackleton's whiskey. Just email that address on the screen, which is PRIS, i.e. Polar Routes Inspiration Series, PRIS at polarroutes.co.uk, and we'll get in touch and sort your prize out. So congratulations to you, Roma Whiteley. Just a reminder of the offer that Andrew mentioned earlier with Quark at the moment. They are out now for 23-24 Antarctica. So whether you're considering next season or the one after, they're open. They've got sailings available up to 25% off the 23-24 and an additional up to 10% off on voyages paid within 30 days of booking. As Andrew mentioned, really excited to say that exclusive to Polar Routes, you can enjoy up to $250 per person to spend on board. So that's plenty of, that's a few drinks around the side of, not too many obviously, but a few drinks around the side, or perhaps some souvenirs to spend on board as well. And Andrew, nothing wrong with mahogany and brass. That's my favourite kind of ship, by the way.
No, I agree. This is it. That's why I said a lot of people prefer it. So it's, no, completely agree.
Absolutely. Thank you so much to you both. Thank you everyone for watching. Have a lovely evening, and we hope to see you again very soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Martin. Thanks,
Take care.